Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to my channel. I'm Roxanne. This is People as They Are. This is going to be a true crime murder mystery series that I'll be posting each week I'll be talking about cases some of you may already know about, others you won't. And I won't be only talking about cases in the United States. I'm going to do my best to post videos of cases that are, spread across the world. On this first episode, I will be talking about Delvecchio Patrick and Deanna Cook. Deanna Cook was a vivacious, beautiful young woman who loved animals and was deeply loved by her family. When she was in high school, she loved running, so she was on the track and field team and won numerous awards. After school, Deanna got married and had 2 daughters. Sometime after her divorce, when she was 28 years old, in 2008, she met Delvecchio Patrick. According to her family and numerous complaints involving the police, their relationship was tumultuous and abusive. Law enforcement had been called to Deanna's home on numerous occasions, and as one officer wrote and described it, the calls were for major domestic disturbances or physical altercations where Deanna was beaten pretty badly. On the 3rd of January 2009, Deanna's friend Chamara Ingram was visiting Deanna at her home in Balch Springs, Texas. When they were there, Delvecchio came home and was very upset, started cursing at Deanna and beating her because he was calling her during the day and she hadn't answered her phone. While he was beating her, he also held her by her neck, lifted her up in the air and was choking her. Chamara said she begged for him to stop, so he dropped Deanna, and he then said she should shut up or he would do the same to her. Chamara ran outside and called the police, and she said she could hear him inside beating Deanna again. When the police came, Deanna told them that he had brandished a knife at her and threatened to kill her. When they checked her neck, there were finger marks on her neck, so Delvecchio was arrested. In spite of this incident, Deanna married Delvecchio. Deanna's mother, Vicky Cook, said Deanna married Patrick because she thought once they were married he would change for the better. He did not. Late at night on the 20th of March 2010, Deanna ran to her neighbor Shamika Alexander's house. She was in her brassiere and panty. She was pounding on Shamika's door and screaming, begging to be let inside, saying Patrick was going to kill her. When Shamika opened the door to let Deanna inside, she saw Patrick in the yard. He then ran away. He was later tracked down in the lobby of a La Quinta Inn. Someone there called the police. When the police officer got there, he noticed that Delvecchio had a stab on the back of one of his shoulders. There were wounds to his mouth and his forearm and a laceration to his tongue. Patrick told the officer that he ran because there was an active warrant for his arrest, and that was relating to a previous incident where he had assaulted Deanna. The officer who was at Deanna's home found a tire ream, kind of looks like an ice pick, and he determined that was what Deanna used to stab Patrick. At that time, Deanna was arrested because she was the aggressor in that incident. When Patrick was taken to the hospital, the medical staff tended to his wounds, but they released him, stating those wounds were superficial. She was later acquitted of this offense. At around 10:30 a.m. on the 25th of May 2011, another call was received from Deanna's home for domestic disturbance. This time, when the police arrived, he noticed Deanna and Patrick arguing with each other. The officer also noticed that Deanna had bruises on her face and cuts on her hands. When he asked her the reason for the cuts, she said that Patrick had pulled a knife on her, and when she put up her hands to defend herself, he slashed her across the hands. Patrick was arrested for that offense. Late in the evening on the 28th of July 2012, Deanna called 911 asking to have the police sent to her neighborhood because Patrick had been knocking on her door, telling her she had better not go to work. She explained to the 911 operator that even though Patrick had tried to kill her 3 times before, she had tried to get a restraining order against him, and that was 2 years prior that she had tried to get a restraining order, but she said the judge told her that she was not eligible for one because she had been to jail. The 911 operator told her that with her previous request being 2 years prior, if she had copies of all the reports for all the incidents that involved Patrick, if she had those copies, she should take them to the court to try to get a restraining order, as he was threatening her life, and that's against the law. So Deanna said she would do that and asked the operator to send the police, as Patrick was sitting in the park across from her home and she was afraid to go to work. She couldn't miss work anymore because she had missed it the day before because of him. When the police showed up, he was sitting outside with 2 bags. He told the police that he was waiting for his niece to pick him up. As he had done nothing wrong, they didn't arrest him, but they took him to his stepfather's house, also in Balch Springs. Now, according to Patrick's stepfather, Alan Dean Hall, Deanna was not allowed at his house because they did not get along. He claimed of a time when Deanna had called his house and left a message on his voicemail, and in the background he heard 3 gunshots. He also said that she had shown up at his house with a machete, demanding that his youngest son's girlfriend come out because that girlfriend had told Patrick that Deanna was cheating on him. Paul said his stepson and Deanna had a volatile relationship. One minute they were lovey-dovey, the next minute they were fighting. The volatility of that relationship was confirmed by Deanna's mother, Vicky. Vicky said the relationship her daughter and Patrick had was very rocky from the start. Sometimes it was good, sometimes it was bad, with many altercations where they would physically injure each other. She said she was never comfortable with the relationship, so she tried to get Deanna to leave Patrick. But Deanna was very strong-willed, she was very forgiving, very loving, and she wanted her relationship to work. Deanna's sister, Carlitha Cook Gundy, said Deanna was eventually able to get a restraining order. I checked to find when it was that she got that restraining order, but there was no information available as to when. Even with the restraining order in place, Deanna continued to see Delvecchio Patrick, with him constantly making threats on her life. Vicky said the last time she had seen her daughter was when Deanna and Patrick showed up to church on Sunday the 12th of August. They showed up together. This was very surprising to Vicky because that was not the norm. Vicky said Deanna was very quiet and subdued while Patrick was all up in it. When Vicky asked him if everything was okay, he said, "It's all right, we're going to be good." Deanna was Vicky's firstborn, so they were very close. Vicky said they would speak on the phone all the time, almost every day. The week of Sunday, August the 12th, which was when she saw them at church, they spoke every day up until Friday the 17th of August. When they spoke on that Friday, Vicky did not know that would be the last time she would actually speak with her daughter. At about 9:34 a.m. on that Friday morning, Vicky sent a text to her mother letting her know she was going to take a nap. And that was the last communication Vicky got from Deanna. After not hearing from Vicky on Saturday the 18th of August, she called her and there was no answer. Vicky checked Deanna's Facebook page, but Deanna hadn't made any recent posts. Vicky said that was strange because Deanna lived on Facebook. During this time, Vicky spoke with Patrick. On that Saturday, he called her and told her that he had seen Deanna on Wednesday the 15th of August, and then he said he had some friends go over to her house to check on her. When they knocked on the door, no one answered. Vicky also heard from Patrick on Sunday the 19th of August, and he was the one who called Vicky. He again told her he had seen Deanna, but instead of it being Wednesday, he said he saw Deanna on Thursday the 16th, and he had his homeboys go over to the house to check on her, but no one came to the door and they didn't go into the yard because the dogs were barking. When Vicky had not heard from Deanna by Sunday the 19th of August, she called her daughter Carlitha, and then she took Deanna's 2 daughters who were living with Vicky, the grandmother, and they all went over to Deanna's house to check on her. When they got there, everything looked okay from the outside. They tried to look inside through the windows, but they were unable to see anything. So one of Deanna's daughters jumped the back fence and let them in through the back gate. Suddenly, water started to flow from under the garage door down the driveway. That's when Vicky called 911. Now in this moment, I wondered why it was that neither of the 4 had a key to Deanna's home. So I thought to myself, it's possible that Deanna wanted to protect them from Delvecchio Patrick, so didn't give them a key to her home. The 911 call taker, Angelia Herod Graham, told Vicky that she would not be able to send the police. Vicky would first need to call hospitals and jails to check if Deanna was there, because sending the police is a last resort. When help was refused, Carlitha told her mother she was going to kick in the door. After a few attempts, Carlitha was successful in doing so, and they proceeded inside. But suddenly, an overwhelming smell hit them, and Carlitha said in a True Crime Daily interview that it was the smell of death. She ran outside. Vicky proceeded into the house. There was no information as to whether or not her granddaughters went inside with her. Vicky said when she got inside, the house was neat and tidy, which was, how Deanna liked to keep things. But one thing that was strange was that there was water all over the floor. It was flooded. The water was over her feet, and it was coming from the back of the house. Vicky proceeded to Deanna's bedroom, and when she pushed the bedroom door open, it fell off the hinges. She continued into the bedroom, and it was nothing but disarray. Things were broken and thrown all over the place. The mattress was pushed off the base, and that's when Harold Graham decided to send the police. Harold Graham told Vicky that she should go outside and wait for the police, but Vicky proceeded. When she got to the bathroom and entered, Vicky said she first looked to the left, and then when she looked to the right, she saw a shadow behind the shower curtain. When she looked behind the shower curtain, she saw her daughter, Deanna Cook, lying face down in water, her legs hanging over the edge of the tub. The water was still running, flooding the floor. Vicky screamed that Delvecchio Patrick, had finally done it. He had killed her daughter. Delvecchio Patrick was arrested for murder and sat in the county jail for almost 3 years before his trial began on the 18th of May 2015. There were numerous delays. It was supposed to start in 2013, and then it was delayed, and then it started in 2015. During testimony, Carl London, a firefighter and paramedic who was one of the first responders, said when he got to the house and saw Deanna, he knew that they didn't need to perform CPR or any kind of life-saving technique. He said when he looked at her body, it was bloated from the water, and the body normally only looks like that when it has been drowned. Responding police officers Samuel Bryant and Michael Mulkey said when they got there, the water was still flowing throughout the house. They confirmed what Vicky said with the water being over their feet. They also said the bedroom door looked like it had been forced open and the lock was sticking out the side of the door. Also, Mulkey noticed that the deadbolt on the bedroom door had been secured from the inside, which was odd, as the position of the deadbolt was inconsistent to the damage on the door, and he thought it was possible that someone had secured the deadbolt after the door had been damaged. During the trial, evidence was presented that on the 17th of August, the day Deanna was murdered, Patrick was living at his stepfather's house. Telephone records were presented to the court that showed 164 calls were made from the landline to Deanna's cell phone. There are a few witnesses outside of the medical personnel and the police officers. One such witness was Debbie Lawson. She was a mail carrier. Lawson gave a statement to the police and the DA saying that at around 10:40 a.m. on the 17th of August, she saw Deanna and Patrick walking down the street headed towards Deanna's house. But at the trial, Lawson said it could have been Patrick because she can't be sure it was him, as it had been so long since the murder and her recollection was better back then. She also said she was uneasy about testifying. Vicky Cook also testified about what happened that day. During Vicky's testimony, Deanna's 911 call was played. Vicky identified one was her daughter's voice, the other was Patrick's voice. Vicky also identified Patrick's voice on recordings of calls he had made while he was in the Dallas County Jail. At 10:52 a.m. on the 17th of August, Deanna called 911. Call taker Tom Hopkins took that call. The call center supervisor, Kimberly Cole, was not available to help Hopkins because she had been called into an impromptu meeting. So a senior call taker, Johnny Wakefield, assisted Hopkins with classifying and handling that call. What was heard on that call was so devastating, some family members left the courtroom. On the call, Deanna did not get to say anything to Hawkins. I'm going to play a portion of the call, and I have to warn you, it is pretty gruesome. So if you have any small children in the room or it causes you to be too upset, please fast forward to the point that I'll be putting in the description below. You can just click on that. It takes you to after the call will be played. But again, please be aware that the recording is very heartbreaking and hard to listen to. I don't know if you were able to hear it, but you could hear Deanna pleading for her life. She referred to the person who was with her as Baby, Red, and Delvecchio. Red is Delvecchio Patrick's pet name. You could also hear him taunting her, "We're the police." She begged, she pleaded for her life. You could hear the fear in her voice. And while he was strangling her, while he was choking her, you could hear him say, "I'll kill you. I'm going to kill you. I'll kill you." Also, at different points throughout the call, you could hear Hopkins saying, "Do you need police, fire, or ambulance?" She said this 5 times. The last time she said it was after Deanna stopped speaking or choking. There was silence. And one final time, Hopkins said, "Hello, ma'am. Do you need police, fire, or ambulance? Hello?" The call lasted 17 minutes and 21 seconds. It is possible that Patrick realized that Deanna called 911 because her phone was never found. Call taker Hopkins eventually notified dispatch to send the police. She coded the call as a major disturbance and put a note stating urgent. Hopkins was notified by call taker Wakefield to hang up and call Deanna back. Hopkins called Deanna's phone at 11:10 and 11:12 a.m., but the calls went to voicemail. Dispatcher Yamina Shani Mitchell made outreach to the police and asked which one would like to volunteer to take the call. Officers Julie Menchaca and Amy Wilburn said they would go to Deanna's house. They arrived at Deanna's house approximately 50 minutes after Deanna called 911 for help. Officers Menchaca and Wilburn claimed that when they got to Deanna's house, they didn't enter the yard because Deanna's 2 chihuahuas were barking. They said they tried to see through the window, but they weren't able to see anything. When they knocked on the door, no one answered. So they called dispatch and asked Mitchell to call Deanna's phone. There was no answer. So the officers left, noting that the disturbance had been resolved. Now, there were 3 reasons that the communications department gave for the officers being delayed to get to Deanna's house. The first reason was because Deanna had called from her cell phone, they were unable to pinpoint a location. Deanna's call pinged on one tower, but after the call ended, which was after she was already dead, the phone pinged on 3 other towers. So they had to go through data to find the location based on a previous 911 call that Deanna had made. The second reason the officers were delayed in getting to Deanna's house was that the call was set at a low priority. For any kind of domestic disturbance, and this is what I recall when I was a dispatcher myself, any kind of domestic disturbance, any kind of gun crime, kidnapping is supposed to be set at the highest priority. That would be number 1. We'd code it as a 1. The third reason they arrived late to Deanna's house was they stopped at a 7-Eleven for bottles of water. Continuing with the trial, another witness, Dennis Williams, who lived about 5 houses down from Deanna's, said when he was on his way home at about 11:30 a.m. for his lunch, he drove past Patrick, who was sitting on a car without shirt and shoes. When he honked at Patrick, who he had seen about 2 or 3 times before that, Patrick did not respond. When Williams was asked to identify the man he had seen that day, he pointed to Patrick. He said on the 17th of August, Patrick was sporting a bald head, but while Patrick was in court, he had hair. But Williams still identified Patrick as a man he saw that day. My guess is that Patrick was waiting outside to see if the police were going to show up, or to see if Deanna was going to be coming outside. If she had lived, he would then go back to finish the job. During the trial on the 19th of May, the prosecution was notified of a surprise witness, Nurse Jamie Hardaway. She was not on the witness list, so she had to be questioned by the prosecution and the defense outside of the jury presence, with a judge, of course, to determine what would be admissible for her to say in court. On the 21st of May, she took the stand. She said that when Patrick was in the county jail in April 2013, when she was working there, and she was giving out medication to the inmates, Patrick confessed to her that he had murdered his ex-wife. Hathaway claimed that the confession of murder was made to her in the presence of another inmate, Clint Stoker, as well as a DSO officer. She was unable to remember the DSO officer's name, race, or gender. When the defense called Stoker to testify, he said he had heard no such confession. He hardly knew Patrick at all, and he had no idea who Hardaway is. 9 witnesses who worked at the jailhouse signed affidavits stating even though they worked at the jailhouse at that time and they would accompany the nurses when they handed out medications, they said they did not recall hearing a confession from Patrick or any other inmate. Before Deanna was murdered, she had been diagnosed with mental disorders which included bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, and schizoaffective disorder. At an early age, she started using marijuana and PCP and continued to do so for the rest of her life. The defense introduced evidence that said PCP can cause hallucinations, suicidal ideations, delusions, bizarre behavior, and as long as a drug was in a person's brain tissue, it would be producing an effect. 3 days after Deanna's death, an autopsy was performed by the medical examiner. Due to decomposition, fluid was only available from Deanna's chest cavity. From that sample, 0.20 milligrams of phencyclidine, commonly known as PCP, was found. But the medical examiner testified that they were unable to determine from that small sample how much PCP was actually in Deanna's system and how it was affecting her when she died. It was the medical examiner's opinion that PCP did not contribute to Deanna's death, and with the audio from the final 911 call that Deanna made, which helped with the final decision, determined that her death was due to drowning and other homicidal evidence, such as strangulation or suffocation. Other medical examiners examined this evidence and agreed with the conclusion. The defense, however, claimed that Deanna overdosed on PCP and died from falling asleep in the bathtub like Whitney Houston did, and not only hallucinated that she believed Patrick was there, but hallucinated his voice. I don't know how a hallucinated voice can be recorded on a call. The defense's medical experts said that the amount of PCP that was in Deanna's system was above the minimum concentrations associated with a fatality, but also said that he could not say for sure that PCP contributed to her death. The state showed an image of a tattoo on Patrick's leg, which they claimed he got while he was in jail. The tattoo depicted a woman with cornrows and 2 afro puffs. She was engulfed in flames and crying. The defense said the woman was not Deanna and Patrick had had that tattoo for 10 years. They said the woman depicted in that tattoo was popular rapper Lady of Rage. On the 22nd of May 2015, Delvecchio Patrick was found guilty of murder. Patrick faced up to life in prison, but at 38 years of age, he was sentenced to 85 years imprisonment and a $10,000 fine. Before sentencing, Patrick's mother took the stand and pleaded for leniency. She said Patrick had changed when he was in school when he had been prescribed Ritalin. Ritalin is used to treat attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, which stimulates the mind and body and helps to calm children down. Patrick's mother also said sending her son away would be taking him away from his 2 children and his father, who was very sick. Now, I understand a mother's devotion to her child, but it's sad that she would ask for leniency using Patrick's 2 children as a reason when Patrick took a mother, Deanna Cook, away from her 2 teenage daughters. Patrick's 2 children would be able to visit him in prison or talk to him on the phone. Deanna's children would only be able to visit their mother's grave. While one of Deanna's daughters, Ania Williams, was giving her impact statement, Delvecchio Patrick gave her the middle finger. She told him that was not nice of him to do, but she hoped that when he was in prison that he would be assaulted. When Deanna's other daughter, Anicia Williams, was giving her impact statement, he mouthed the words, "F you" to her. She laughed at him and said, "F you too." That's just a nicer way of putting it. She said, "F you too, you got 85 years. On the 20th of August 2018, 6 years after Deanna's murder, Patrick's appeal was brought to the Court of Appeals, 5th District of Texas in Dallas. 13 issues were named, including insufficient evidence to support his conviction, admitting and excluding evidence, and admitting evidence of Patrick's prior convictions. His appeal was denied. 911 operator Angelia Herod Graham, who took Vicky Cook's call, was fired for mishandling the call. The reason given was that she did not dispatch officers to Deanna's home when Vicky informed her that water was flowing from the house. Harold Graham appealed her termination, stating she did everything that she had been trained to do, but her appeal was denied based on her code of conduct. Dallas PD said she had mishandled 2 previous calls. The first was when a police officer had been assaulted, and the second was when a woman called for 911 asking to have an officer sent to her home because there was a man outside of her house brandishing a gun. Harold Graham hung up on the woman. Tonita Hopkins, the operator who handled Deanna's call, was given a 10-day suspension and was then moved to a different department. She eventually resigned. Hopkins gave an interview after stating that during the call she was trying to find Deanna's address and she was unable to hear Deanna because of the noise in the background from the other operators, and she did not have a noise-canceling headset. But if you were listening to the call earlier, if you listened to the portion of the call that I played earlier, did you hear any noise in the background? The only thing I could hear were Deanna and Delvecchio Patrick, and as well as Hopkins when she was asking if Deanna needed police, fire, or ambulance. I didn't hear any 911 operators in the background. Wakefield, who helped Hopkins with the call, was not reprimanded in any way. Vicky, her daughter Carletha Cook Gundy, and Deanna's 2 daughters sued the City of Dallas, T-Mobile USA, Metro PCS Communications, Samsung Electronics, and Samsung Telecommunications America, as well as all call takers and the dispatcher who took Vicky and Deanna's calls, and the 2 officers who showed up to Deanna's house late. The family's main claim was that the police took their time getting to Deanna's house because of where she lived. In March 2017, the Fifth Circuit Court dismissed the lawsuit against the telecommunications defendants. In February 2019, the lawsuit against the communications personnel was dismissed, and summary judgment was granted in favor of the city, stating a municipality cannot be held liable if plaintiffs cannot show that a constitutional deprivation has occurred, and they found no constitutional violation on the part of the individual defendants. The family appealed the decision, but they lost that appeal in November 2019, when the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals held that the city was entitled to governmental immunity, which means the government is exempt from a suit and they cannot be held liable. This was after 7 years of the lawsuit being tied up in the legal system, and after $355,000 had been paid to attorneys who defended the city. The judge dismissed the family's lawsuit. The Cook family received no money. You know, it's pretty sad that the money that was given out to, it's pretty sad that the money that was used to cover attorney's fees for the city was money that was not given to the family. I mean, it wouldn't be much, but at least they would have gotten something for what occurred on those 911 calls. I do believe that, yes, where Deanna lived caused a delay. I'm sure many of you are aware that the nicer your neighborhood, the quicker the police will show up. So I do believe that, but unfortunately, the burden of proof was on the Cook family and they lost out to the city. I saw in an article that over the years, the city of Dallas paid out $10 million in lawsuits brought against them. This included police brutality. I don't know if the Cook family is appealing the final decision in 2019. I was unable to find any information on a new lawsuit. That I don't know if they're allowed to even appeal that final decision, but it's very sad what happened. And if there's anyone out there listening right now, if you're in the same situation as Deanna, please leave. If you notice if there is any red flag at the beginning of a relationship, you know, someone raises a hand to hit you or gets very upset at you because you didn't answer a phone call, don't stay, leave. If the person goes through your phone, leave. If that person is asking you about your sexual history, leave. If that person is restricting you from speaking to someone who's a friend of yours, that person, that friend being of the opposite sex, or if you are in a same-sex relationship and your friend is of the same sex and your partner is restricting you from that person, leave. If your partner is keeping you from your loved ones, leave. Any kind of mental, emotional, physical, verbal, financial abuse, do not put up with it. It will not get better. You cannot change an abuser. You cannot do it. There is not enough love in the world that will change an abuser. The best thing for you to do is leave. Thank you so much for stopping by to listen. Thank you so much for taking the time. Don't forget to share this video with anyone who you suspect or you know may be going through the same issue. Thank you for stopping by. Please be safe, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.